When I was in my late 20s, I was introduced to Gestalt therapy. Gestalt is a word in German which translates to whole. Like when someone says, can you get a gestalt of what's happening here? Can you get can you grok, let's say a play? Like, wow, what's the gestalt of King Lear with Shakespeare? And there is an arc. There's a powerful gestalt of what that play is about and all the dynamics in it. So Gestalt is about opening up to more wholeness. And Gestalt therapy by Fritz Perls was developed. He's a humanistic psychologist in the 50s. He used to be at Esalen. Did a lot of great work. And his work was always about reclaiming disowned aspects of ourselves, places that we pushed aside, we repressed. We, for good reason, have defense mechanisms and we push things away from us. So his work was about reclaiming all of ourselves. And so one of the ways he did that was, he called it an empty chair technique, where let's say if I'm working with a client and the client has got a lot of disturbance around their father, they've got memories, they're just so upset, they just can't resolve it. But their father either isn't there, he's no longer alive, or he's not in the same town, or he's not willing to come to therapy. So what do? So you have the father sit in the chair, and so the client imagines the father is sitting in the chair. And you'd think, well, that's kind of dopey. That can't really seem real. Oh, you would be astonished. As soon as the person imagines the father is there, the energy starts to move. What they want to say gets moved, and they get to express a lot, the things they haven't expressed. They're surprised what they have to say, some of the strength of it, some of the tenderness of it. And there's a real relationship with their father inside of them that they're working through. Then often I would invite them to go sit in the chair of the father and have the father talk to them. And I say, you don't need to know what the father's going to say. This isn't about your mind telling you what to say. Just go over there. Have the intention of imagining that you're in your father's consciousness, his shoes, and respond to what you just said. And they go over there, and you would be astounded how powerful that could be. Something about physically moving into imaginative dialogue of a healing nature and unifying nature. Because then the father gets a voice, the person gets a voice, these start to unify and the energies start to partner and work with each other. Very powerful. In the same way, aside from working with somebody in your life outwardly, like a father, you work with two different parts of you inside. I'll give you a more benign example. Someone comes to me and they are faced with a job promotion, which requires them to move their family across the country. They're excited as hell about the job. And another part of them is scared to death. Will they be successful? Will their family be happy? Will this be successful? Will it not? So they've got this enthusiasm for adventure and ready, and they have another part that's scared and reticent. And what people typically do is they toggle back and forth. One day that man would be excited as hell. The next day he's terrified. So what do you do? Because it's back and forth. He toggles back and forth. So voice dialogue is developed by Hal and Sidra Stone, and it was built on Gestalt. It added to it. But you'd actually have a dialogue between the two parts. And there's something so extraordinarily revealing and balancing about doing that. So let's say my client would be dealing with both of those, but they wouldn't both be exerting power and will to make the choice they want to make. The key is they respond to each other. So the adventuresome one says, wow, I know I'm excited, but I can see this scares the hell out of you. I see that now. This is very uncomfortable for you. So empathy between the two aspects starts to open up the heart, and there starts to be a partnering because they are both inside the same consciousness. The key is when you're having that dialogue that it be organic. You don't know what you're going to say when you switch chairs. You also don't speak too long in any one aspect, so the other one has a chance to respond to it. But always, when you get in the chair and you switch chairs, you want to respond to what was just said by the other aspect. Because these two are building a partnership and an alliance of understanding and empathy. It's very, very, very powerful. Often what will happen is one of the directions about, let's say, a move to a new career, a new job, let's say it ends up, it's obvious to the person, this is what needs to take place. They both recognize it. So the part that's scared said, look, I see this is where we're going, and I understand why, but I'm still scared. I need your help to work with the fear. And then the other part would say, well, how can I help that? I'd say, well, whenever I'm afraid, I need you to take the time to talk to me, to listen to me, to my feelings. Because otherwise they just grow and grow and grow and they just take over. I need your empathy. I need your understanding. So they start partnering each other with requests. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. And this kind of dialogue, voice dialogue with polarities can even be done, let's say, with a masculine part of ourselves and the feminine part of ourselves, because we all have those. Every man and every woman has both. And the very different experiences of one's life. And sometimes those two need to have a conversation with each other. So there's all different ways that it can be facilitated, but there's something highly integrative and highly maturing about bringing two disparate parts that are polarized into understanding and cooperation. People become mature when they do that, rather than impulsive, rather than wrestling with themselves. They create a safe enough space where they can hear all of them. And we're capable of doing that. And no one ever taught us that. I wish they did. It's actually a very natural skill. And it's a pleasure to facilitate it.
Once someone has had that facilitated, how do they bring that into their day-to-day and their own consciousness, that dialogue?
What's interesting about the process of physically moving in a dialogue, right, from chair to chair, it's very powerful because then each aspect gets to have the floor, it gets to have the microphone, it knows it will be honored and heard. So after you start to do this work for a little while, another option for doing it emerges that you can use throughout the day if you'd like, and that's with a journal. So let's say in the example I gave of the man who's got an opportunity for a career move, we would just put C for career. And then you just write. You write out what that place needs to say without physically moving chairs. And then you put afraid, A, and you let that place talk. What starts to happen, the more you become more facile and comfortable and trusting of how to do inner work with these aspects, you can be in a business meeting and have a very powerful inner dialogue about what's going on in that meeting. You can even be the leader of that meeting. And you have two different parts that are responding to what's going on in the room. One could be pissed off at somebody in the way they're managing themselves, the way they're disrupting the meeting. Another one knows it needs to keep its cool and has a chance to lead by example and needs to be compassionate and patient. Those two parts inside can talk to each other. They can have a safe space. They can be heard. They can coexist. That's mature leadership. Very powerful. So when you see someone who's dealing with conflict, like, for example, I would think of a professional, let's say there are people with the fire department that help people off the roof when they want to commit suicide. So they have a part of them that their job is to get that person off the roof alive. But they have another part of them is to build a relationship with that person. And so they're skilled in simultaneous ways, and they're highly skilled in working with situations like that, or hostages situation. The bottom line is we have what I've referred to as multiplicity of selves. We have different parts of us that can be together inside at the same time. And we need to be facile and become more and more facile at being able to handle both. Sometimes there's 3 or 4, but it actually becomes workable because we're intricate, multi-layered people. But once you start doing the work, people are always surprised with voice dialogue. They feel self-conscious. They don't know if they can do it. They feel awkward. But then something real starts to happen, and it's authentic. And they see that it's a natural skill. But this is eminently usable in one's day-to-day world to be able to attune to self, to be able to manage different aspects inside that might have different experiences so that they can get unified and go in a common direction, but not out of force, not out of will, not out of bullying. It's sensitivity, it's awareness. Awareness is curative, and awareness is the key. And you get more experience the more you have a chance to do it.